Welcome to Fuller Brook Park. I'm Rosemary Donahue, Chair of the Fuller Brook Park Coordinating Committee. Today we'd like to show you some of the improvements to the park that are being planned through the Fuller Brook Park Restoration Project. The master plan made clear the complexity of the issues that needed to be addressed and the importance of a coordinated process involving key town departments and boards, and includes representatives from the Natural Resources Commission, Public Works, the Board of Selectmen, the Historical Commission, the School Committee, and the Trails Committee. Directors from relevant town departments also were involved, including Natural Resources, Public Works, the Town Engineer, and the Director of Planning. Working with a team of design consultants, we now have 100% design plans and the necessary permits to begin work. The area of the park is approximately 23 acres, stretching from Dover Road to Maugus Avenue, and it is an important green space enjoyed by residents of all ages. It includes approximately 2.5 miles of path, which is heavily used by walkers, joggers, bikers, and any given weekend you'll see families out enjoying the park. And now we'd like to show you some examples of the work needed and the improvements that are being proposed to restore and preserve Fuller Brook Park.
I'm David Wright with the Wellesley Historical Commission. In the 19th century, most of what we now call Fuller Brook Park looked like this. It didn't have the beautiful lawns and the upland shrubby areas and the path winding through it and the perfect stream banks. It was a marshy area. It was a very typical New England landscape, low-lying, water collected here, and water-loving plants grew here. It is a naturalistic park in the sense that you're supposed to feel like you're walking through nature, but in fact it was put there by people for the enjoyment of people. On the other hand, it also does function as a natural ecosystem, as we will see.
I'm Heidi Kost-Gross, Chairman of the Natural Resources Commission, and I'd like to address the stream bank, our proposed stream bank remediations, flooding issues, and of course the trees and the general vegetation. So I'd like to tell you about the stream. The stream bed was actually not the way you see it now, 100 years ago. It was basically level and on the elevation of the general terrain. It was lowered during the Work Progress Administration in order to accommodate additional flooding and additional water flow.
Hi, I'm Paul Criswell, and I'm Chairman of the Board of Public Works. I want to talk today about two aspects of the Fuller Brook Park as infrastructure for the town of Wellesley. First, stormwater management, and second, pedestrian safety. So the Fuller Brook drains about 35% of the town of Wellesley. Stormwater collects on the roads, the streets, the driveways, and runs into Fuller Brook. Now, to fully understand this, I think I have to make some reference to classical music, because it seems that the Standells only had it half right. If Boston is your home, then it really is all about the banks of the River Charles. And what the Fuller Brook does is it gathers all this water and discharges it into the Charles River down near the Nahoyden Golf Course. But we no longer love that dirty water. And the town has to have a permit from the Environmental Protection Agency in order to do that, in order to discharge water into the Charles. And we have to do some things to reduce the pollution in the runoff before we send it into the river.
Hi, I'm Bob White, member of the Trails Committee and Vice Chairman of the Fuller Brook Park Coordinating Committee. I'm standing in a test section of the path. This path was put in 2 years ago to test a surface which we were considering for use in the park. As you know, the park is 2.5 miles long. We want it to look like one contiguous park, which it doesn't now.
My name's Kurt Somerville. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Friends of Fuller Brook Park with my wife Kendra. We moved to Wellesley four and a half years ago, and I grew up in Wellesley but moved back about 4.5 years ago. We moved into Seaver Street and we abut the path, and we found the path to be a great resource. Walking the dog, coming out with the kids, riding our bikes.
In 1897, the town of Wellesley looked at that land and saw two things: a potential hazard where pollution and animal waste would wash down and become a health hazard. And they also saw a potential amenity for the people of Wellesley. In those days, it was becoming clear to people who lived in urban areas that they would have to have green spaces. And the great pioneer of green spaces in urban areas was Frederick Law Olmsted, the architect of Central Park in New York and the Emerald Necklace in Boston. People in Wellesley, and particularly the Wellesley Parks Committee, looked at the Emerald Necklace and said, we could use something like that in our town as it grows and develops.
The watershed inflow was so tremendous that in 1950 to 55, these concrete liners were installed to facilitate a straighter flow, basically, and to propel the water faster towards the Charles River. What is happening in the 70s, 80s, 90s to today is these liners are actually impeding the flow now. They are hindering the proper speed of the water, obviously through volume. But the other thing that happens is that the water floods the surrounding areas and breaks down the embankment. So if you look at the embankment, in areas along the brook, it is higher than 4 feet. During storm events, it goes even over the 4-foot drop into the areas where I'm standing. In other stretches of the brook, we find that the water spills over and has a width, the breadth of the brook, takes in between 15 and 20 feet. And what we are seeing now is between 6 and 8 feet.
The Fuller Brook drains about 35% of the town of Wellesley. The watershed radiates out from the brook and goes as far as the Needham line up behind the RDF, and on the other side it extends up actually beyond Upham School. The normal flow of the Fuller Brook is about 10 cubic feet per second. That's enough that we could fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool completely every 2.5 hours. But in what is called a 10-year storm, which we seem to be having fairly often these days, that flow increases by 30 times, and we would actually end up filling an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 5 minutes.
We tested the surface. The surface is holding up beautifully. This is a type of surface we'll use in the park. It will be from 6 feet wide at the ends where the traffic is less heavy, and 8 feet wide in the middles near the schools, near the library, where more people use the path. What this path will replace in a lot of sections is this asphalt behind me, which, as you can see, is alligatored with ruts, with dips. Water freezes in the middle of it. It's a very unsafe situation. This path here will drain very nicely. This path can be plowed by the DPW. This would be a great improvement. We had our public hearings. People overwhelmingly were in favor of what we call a soft surface path, and we've listened, and this is what we're going to do.
Over time, we started picking up trash and kind of feeling proprietary about the path and taking care of it, and we thought, why not form a friends group where people who were users of the path could band together and organize cleanups and advocate on behalf of the path. It's such a terrific town resource. And so a couple of years ago we did that, and we've had 4 cleanups, a couple a year. We typically get 50, 60, 70 people out here to clean up. Our first one was on Earth Day a couple of years ago.
They approached not Frederick Law Olmsted himself, but his son, who was running the family firm in Brookline, and asked him to come to Wellesley to make a study of this low-lying swampy land, to see if he could see a park there, and the answer was yes. Mr. Olmsted submitted a study, and he did not, at that moment, design a park for the town of Wellesley, but he laid out the outline for what it might be like. And he also recommended that it begin at Washington Street and Maugus Avenue and end at Dover Road and the Nahoyden Golf Course, which is, in fact, what it does today.
In the olden days, in the 50s and 60s, back when the last serious work was done on Fuller Brook, The whole idea was to speed the water up. It was to increase the velocity of the water and to get it out of town as quickly as possible into the river and then out into the harbor. Unfortunately, it also increases the volume of all the runoff and pushes that out into the river and into the harbor as well. And that's one of the reasons why the Boston Harbor ended up being so polluted. Over the years, as debris has rushed down the Fuller Brook, it has ended up, some of it has ended up in the skating pond here, and the pond has silted over. As a result, the pond can't fulfill its natural role in the watershed of being a detention basin for stormwater and also promoting and helping the natural flow of the water. One of the things that we'll be doing as part of the project is to dredge the silt out of the pond here and restore it to its more natural state and its more natural role.
In order for us to remediate and to rebuild the banks, we have to remove these concrete liners. We will streamline and somehow fix the elevation of the banks and the straightness of the brook just in order to accommodate and mediate flood events. Now, what happens then to the banks? The banks would continue to erode if we were not to vegetate them. The vegetation will consist of native water-based or wetland-based plant materials that over time will also absorb floodwaters. Now, of course, when you look around now, you see an awful lot of trees hanging on for dear life with their roots going into the brook. These trees are exceedingly damaging to the flow as well. And over time, we have removed many of them. And this time we will take it very seriously in removing root systems as well.
Today, I'm mucking out the stream here. It's gotten kind of clogged up with debris. And as a result, when it really rains, the storm water kind of goes outside the channel. So that's one of the things we hope that the whole restoration of the park and the path and the brook is going to address.
The most interesting historic structures in the park are the street crossings and the bridges that were designed by various engineers at various times from the 1890s to the 1980s to carry the town streets across the brook. This bridge at Wellesley Avenue is an early bridge dating from the 1890s, but it was refaced by the engineer A. Stewart Cassidy in 1930 using these handsomely cut and dressed granite blocks. The bridge at Cameron Street was designed by A. Stewart Cassidy at around the same time as the Wellesley Avenue Bridge, but in a little different style with more rounded fieldstone elements in the same beautiful crescent shape. At the ends of the bridge, there are pipes set in the masonry that used to hold gas lines for gas lights. The Brook Street Bridge is one of our older bridges. We think it dates from about the turn of the century. You'll notice some quaint construction. The concrete culverts are surrounded by brick infill. You'll also notice that the granite blocks have slipped somewhat and some of them have been moved by tree roots. And so this will be a high priority to restore.
I mentioned that the Environmental Protection Agency has given us a permit to discharge stormwater into the Charles River. The EPA is coming out with what are called Phase 2 permits, and those Phase 2 permits will require the town to do a lot more to remove all of these debris and pollutants from the water before we discharge it into the Charles. We believe that as far as stormwater is concerned, that this project is the right thing to do. But it's not just a good piece of good civil engineering. It's not just the right thing to do environmentally. It's also something that we believe will save the town money in the long run. And all is part of preserving this beautiful, beautiful park.
Now, when we are talking about vegetation in the park, we are talking about an incredible number and a diverse number of invasives. These invasives can be seedlings of Norway maples. Basically, if you look up into this direction, you will see seedlings, and of course downstream we have entire stands of seedlings distorting the bank. The removal of those Norway maples is very crucial. So also is the Japanese knotweed. Japanese knotweed was an imported species, as was the Norway maple, to alleviate flooding basically, and of course now they alleviate proper flow of the water.
Over a period of several decades, the park took form. It was designed by many people, and it has many different appearances as we will see all along its length. It is what they call a vernacular park, meaning many hands designed it, and it has just become a local treasure for that reason.
You cannot really completely fill in the wetland. It will always want to come to the surface, the water, and it's good. The best working partners we have for any kind of remediation, particularly flooding, is a healthy wetland.
The Fuller Brook Path and Park as part of the pedestrian access system here in Wellesley. And here I think the point is really obvious. You can start your morning with a walk in Centennial Park, go down, eat breakfast at the Maugust, and then walk all the way down to the Nohoyton Golf Course. On the way back, you can stop, you can meet your friends at the Wellesley Green, and then hopefully soon be able to walk back with them to our new senior center. You can walk with your kids to the Honeywell School, you can let your older children walk to the high school. You can go to the library, you can go to Reedy Field, you can go to the town tennis courts, and you can go to the shopping districts up in downtown Wellesley, all without having to encounter all of the traffic that is on our busy and congested streets. So we believe that the path and the Fuller Brook Park are real precious treasures for the town of Wellesley, and all we have to do is preserve them.
Thank you for joining us for this tour. We hope that you found it helpful and informative. We also would very much welcome your comments and suggestions on the park project, and hope that you will contact us at www.wellesleyma.gov, where there is a link to our homepage under current projects. We also hope to have your support when we go to the 2014 annual town meeting to seek funding for this project. Thank you.